Probably the most common question we get asked, which is why we're making a video specifically about it, even though it's a short one, is how do we get the SKN cleanup function and tone functions, which are two independent functions and they end up on two different layer folder stacks. How do we get them to like play with each other, if you will, if we want to go backwards and make a change? So let's talk about that. So we're going to go ahead and run cleanup real quick. All right. It's going to run on default settings. We're going to change settings in a minute to show you the flexibility of what we can do even after we run our tone function. Okay. So let's go ahead and let that run, showing you that, it takes a few seconds, even though I'm recording here. It also takes a few extra seconds while recording on a 16-bit image, etc. Okay. So let's say we have let's go ahead and zoom in. We have our cleanup done. We're going to go ahead and make it a little bit stronger just for demo purposes. So I'm going to put some secondary smoothing and kind of reduce the texture recovery to a really small texture recovery, maybe like 8%. So it's a very strong blur, probably too strong. That's okay. Now, before we do anything else, we don't have to continue, we don't have to change anything right now. We're going to go ahead and move on to tone. So we're going to run tone. Like we say in other videos, it's going to use the mask from cleanup and set up the tone tools. And now we can make our changes. So let's say we darken the skin, we increase some highlight intensity and the highlight range, maybe something like that. Just going to play around with it. We're going to go to a grade, add a little bit of a color grade to it, maybe something like this, make it a little stronger. But then we think, oh, I want to change the skin texture actually. Well, the reason why tone by SKN is its own layer stack is because of the nature of the HSB replacement function. It has to reprocess the pixels. So we developed a way of going backwards, if you will. So if you look at the toning, you go, I like all this, but I've changed a lot. I've changed contrast, luminosity. I've changed the blend mode. Let's say I leave it on soft light though in this case. I changed the opacity. I chose a grade on top of that. I have a little bit of small toning here, some desaturation. I'm shifting the hue more towards yellow. I'm doing all these simple little changes. But now I decide I want to go back and change the texture. Well, you think, oh, do I have to delete the whole stack? Nope. You could turn it off. Okay. Go back to cleanup. Go all the way back to the main cleanup section. And while you're on that layer stack, you can click on the advanced settings and make any changes necessary. The reason why I did it super smooth is so I can do the opposite now and do a lot of texture to show you a demo. So there's a ton of texture. Okay. So if I like that, no problem. Go back, go to tone. Come back up to the layer stack and turn it on. As you can see, the texture isn't there. But while I'm on that layer, I hit the little reprocess button. It'll reprocess the texture data, bring it up, and keep my toning unchanged. See that? So rather than come up with a less interesting and less powerful method of toning, which is our HSB replace that we came up with, rather than scrap that, we're going to reprocess the pixels every time, which is a tone, if you will, no pun intended. It's the tone of SKN's overall theme is reprocessing pixels. We want to make sure that you have flexibility, not just opacity. Okay. Technically, you don't even have to turn off the tone layer, the tone stack, but I like turn it off, go to cleanup, come back to your settings here, and let's reduce that. And maybe a little bit more secondary smoothing. Why not? Smaller radius, a little more hue balance. There we go. Go back to tone, turn it on, tone, reprocess down here. And now I reprocess everything. As you can see, it's fairly quick too. So we can keep working. So we don't have to scrap all of our toning settings that we had here. We can even have multiple presets here that we can toggle back and forth. And at any moment, go back below, change cleanups, texture, settings, whatever we want to do, more texture, less texture, etc. And then we can always just reprocess it back up.